Yo, what is up? What's up, guys? Randy here, Nerds Templar, behind some characters. Yo! Chillin'. Finally, we've come to episode 20 here, the long-awaited episode 20, because it's about 2 weeks late now. But we're here, finally, with it. Luckily, anybody who's actually waiting for this episode to drop is waiting in the future, and thus isn't waiting because they don't have to wait because it's the future and it's out now. And it's not the future yet. It is the present, as it always is. So, yeah, I guess let's start. I'm a little late again, as I've been late in getting this out. I'm late today, of course. Would have liked to be here an hour ago-ish, with the video already releasing at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time now, because it was Eastern Daylight Time. Now it's Eastern Standard Time. Kind of messing with me, to be honest with you. But yeah, we're here, and we have the same kind of setup here going on the outside of the screen with the same characters. Maybe for episode 21, I'll have some things changed up. Maybe it'll be a little more elaborate. And we're also going to wait on looking at like my big Google Docs of all the characters. All their images, their AI generated images. We're gonna hold off on that until the end of the video, but we will, as we're waiting just for a moment here. Well, we're not gonna wait, actually. I'm just gonna get straight into it. Like and subscribe. I'll just say quickly, spoilers coming up. Go through, if you have not yet, watch at least, like episode 1 and 2 or something. Maybe more than just episode 1. I'd say maybe even the first 3 episodes, perhaps, to get, start getting the gist of what's happening here, because it is a space fantasy saga, if you will. So much like Star Wars, but it's a lot not like Star Wars. It's really not like Star Wars much at all, I would say. There's some similarities just because it's a space themed fantasy story, and it is saga-esque. And that we're hopefully gonna have, this is, again, every episode's about 10 pages written, so it comes to about a 300-page story. 30 episodes then is what we're shooting for book 1 here. The Book of Aezic, there in the top here, in the top right middle. Zario there is one of his newfound best buds through after a lot of stuff. There on the top, front, middle, left, and then Vala there on the right of him. The other main character, you could say those are the 3 main characters of the story. So yeah, I don't know, maybe watch the first 3 if it's something that maybe sparks your interest in non-Hollywood production here. It's really more about the story, not necessarily all the other stuff, like the it being an audio series that I'm narrating myself. You got the background music. We're listening here to the iteration, the music for episode 19. And then so we'll have something a little different here for episode 20 once we get into that. There's really only 10 tracks, and then I sped them up for the next 10 episodes, and I'm going to slow them down for the last 10, just so a little spoiler there on that regard. It's not going to be new. I wish it was. I don't have the time to do all of that. Speaking of time to do things, I'm going to be hopefully putting out at least the end of November schedule here soon on the channel, so you can check out what we have coming up. I had to cut down the streams. That also means cutting down on TCG Collection in general. But hey, things happen, and it's all for the glory of God, so it doesn't matter. You got to be willing to let things go when it's time. Anyway, we're still going to be doing collection stuff, don't worry. But anyway, yeah, that's that. Where we're at right now in the story. Let me just bring up real quick for myself. I'm going to check out what we had on episode 19, so I don't miss anything. One thing to mention, we don't see them here. Philony and Usion still back on Kostia, that religious sort of rocky, cavernous planet, tiny one. Philony made a grave discovery there in the last episode that their planet basically doomed, and so he told the couple of friends he has, people he knows there, about that. And not great, not great, right? So there, that was one, just one small. We finally got a little update on what was happening with them there on Kostia. Of course, Aezic, I should say Jay, came to Inagon, that pre-space planet, searching for Aezic at the very end of the episode. After the battle on that on that planet, on the island, back at the island where they crash landed, where they met Chief Oshu and the rest, and then they went to fight the Ascendancy on the mainland, but then they went back to the island because the Ascendancy had at the same time infiltrated there. They went back to clear them out of there, and at the same time, and while that was happening, while that attack was happening, the Chief Oshu's younger of his two daughters was killed. So then he, of course, is lamenting that loss and has to prepare not only to go back and fight the rest of the battle and war that was begun on the mainland, but to also prepare for the funeral for his daughter. So yeah, so they did then clear out the island. And then we have, of course, everyone back on Ravina. That is a bunch of people now, because we have Hawk, Valanth, Mecha, and Argyle all there. Finally reunited themselves, at least those 4 of the mercenaries, the original 7 mercenary crew, Zario, Filony, and Usion being the others. Zario then, of course, being saved just recently from the continent where the Ascendancy had infiltrated that facility there, where Aezic and the rest of the native warriors went to fight, to start the battle, to save Zario and to destroy the facility, which ended up being destroyed, not by them, but did end up being destroyed anyway. How, they do not know. They just know that it was destroyed, exploded. So they're there, and back to, yeah, of course, Hawk, Valanth, Mecha, and Argyle. They met the rebels of Ravina, which includes mostly Coma and Barnes. They also met one named Proust, and so they're together with them down in the southern region now called Baikarone, which is similar, of course, to the North Pole of Animov. And similar things going on there. The fake Ravinians that those mercenaries know well, down there doing the same shenanigans they were doing in Animov, trying to gather the citizens, using them for several different purposes. We don't know exactly why, of course, but they're on their way down to Baikarone to try to stop that before it gets started. And that's on their way down. They meet the rebels. They get down there with them after a battle in what is called the Canyons, a place in basically the center, you could say, of Ravina, between Cronus and Panya, those 2 regions. Just a big craggy region that most traffic would have to go through. So they meet them there in a big battle against the fake Ravinians, and then end up down in Baikarone and fighting with them there. So that's pretty much where we left off, and they're trying to then infiltrate the facility there. So I guess, without further ado, I'm not going to check. Actually, I will check real quickly here on the status of the actual video. Yeah, it looks like it's just far enough in. Yep, okay. It is published. Whoa! Look at that. Let's see if I can get a better, a little bit of a better thumbnail for it for now. Okay. Close that out and let us begin. Episode 20 of 30. The end of the second part of the book, you could say, kind of. It's not really. It's very, the story arcs, there are kind of sort of like loose story arcs. I'd say they're about 4 to 6 episodes long each arc, always depending. And again, since they're loose, they're a little fluid where they begin and end. But yes, this is you could say this is, it could be seen as an ending. Here we go, cleaning everything up here. Turning the music off. All right, guys. Like and subscribe. If you haven't watched yet, check out those first episodes. If you have watched, and I assume that means you're watching this in the future, thanks for chilling. I hope you enjoy the live iteration here. We'll be back to chat a little bit more, give a little bit of more detail, I guess you could say, after we're done here. So, of course, if you're again watching the VOD, stay tuned for that. Here we go. Beyond Lumina, Episode 20, Reunion.
Your incompetence has forced me to move forward with my designs before it was time.
An ethereal, menacing voice seethed at its subject. I'm sorry, my lord. A large man cowered in fear. Please give me one more chance to make things right. I will end him here and now.
Silence.
The voice screeched.
The only reason you aren't already dead is because there's a visitor here who will unwittingly help me even more than you have. Your final task will be to make sure you don't let the rest of my plans here fall apart. If you fail in this, your suffering will be long and painful.
Of course, O Great One, the huge man said, bowing low to the floor. Aezic, are you all right? Photoglass asked with great concern when another piercing headache brought Aezic down to one knee, just after Chief Oshu told him that a man calling himself Sergeant J had landed on world looking for him. After a longer moment than usual, Aezic was able to recompose himself. J, he thought out loud. J, it can't be. But why? It doesn't seem right. Well, of course it isn't right. Zario, seated recuperating on the other side of the room, answered him. Not if there are more Alliance soldiers here looking for you. He's not just Alliance, Aezic replied. He's part of my crew. My crew? Aezic drifted off again in thought, then suddenly spoke hastily to Oshu. Please, Chief, I need to see him now. Of course, my friend, Chief Oshu consented. He and his crew are waiting just below here. They will take you there. I must prepare to set off for Kalava and my daughter's funeral. The chief then ordered his men in their native tongue, and they escorted Aezic, along with Zario and Vala, down the massive tree structure in which they were and into a lower room, similar to one in which Aezic and Vala had stayed when they were first being held. As they entered, they saw several off-world soldiers, but they weren't dressed in the dark blue synthplate of the Free-World Alliance. Instead, they donned the mauve aetherplate of Ravina. Upon seeing them, the leader spoke. Aezic, my commander, it's been a long time. Captain, we are approaching Ravina's local space, one of his men said to Azor, aboard the Ravinian cruiser known as Calibra. Good. Open comms, Aezic Zin answered. Then, speaking to the whole fleet under his command, he said, Everybody get ready. We're about to run headlong into this war. There's no telling what we'll find when we get to local space, whether this is a backdoor approach or not. Captain Aezic Zin's crew had taken a roundabout route to their homeworld of Ravina, in order to try to avoid charging into the Ascendancy's main forces. Along with his own cruiser, Aezic's younger brother, who looked much like Aezic, only with a tamer hairstyle, led only 3 other Ravinian cruisers and 12 frigate-class ships, along with a total of 36 fighters. It was hardly a counter-invasion force, but Azor hoped it might be just enough to break through a weak point in the enemy blockade. From the ground, he thought a counter-offensive would be more manageable, especially once General Gaster arrived with reinforcements from the Tansorian Federation. The Ravinian fleet entered Ravina's local space near the planet's south pole, the region of Bikaron, and saw very little Ascendancy activity there. Good, Azor said to his crew. We may have skirted their sensors. With any luck, we'll sneak on planet from the south here. All was going well as the fleet made a straight shot for Bikron, until they began to enter the atmosphere, and there below them was a huge Ascendancy cruiser, poised over top of what looked like some massive facility, where a large battle was currently taking place. "Captain," said Azor's subordinate, Lieutenant Baroque, "we're receiving a planet-wide transmission now, telling all citizens in need to evacuate to Bikron during the invasion." Baroque was also Azor and Aezic's brother-in-law, who'd made a life bond with their sister, Aista. "Then that's who's down there, as we could have figured," replied Azor. "Yes, it's just like before," Baroque confirmed. "We have no more time to waste," Captain Azor stated. "Full speed toward Bikron and intercept that cruiser." "There's no more time. We've done everything we can. It's time to retreat and live to fight another rotation," Sergeant Major Ravim somberly declared to his squad. Corporal Tice was taking orders from him in lieu of his sergeants, Vala and Maloon, being on planet. The other corporal, Dodds, was also with Maloon, his commander. That left only Tice, Kizawap, Yuxkothlo, Zawapika, and Mariad, the latter two being Maloon's other subordinates, and the rest being Vala's. The news of the retreat barely came as a shock, since the Ascendancy seemed to have no trouble with their vast numbers seizing the Cronus Prime spaceport. Even with the extra reinforcements brought by General Vorian and Captain Hadrid, they still could not hold the capital city. Not far from Cronus Prime, the Alliance had a major outpost, where the General planned to have all forces rendezvous for a united retaliatory effort. Ravim and the rest needed to retreat quickly with their ships before they got trapped in the port. Zawapika was less surprised than the rest by this, because she had already witnessed what appeared to be Ravim turning on his own people and lying about it to his superiors. She tried to convince herself that there must have been a good reason, or she must have imagined things or had simply been mistaken about what she saw, but it was no use. She knew what happened. It was obvious. Ravim was working with the enemy, but Maloon told her not to say anything to anyone, including her sister, Kizawap. The young Alliance private kept silent, as she and her crewmates boarded the triptych and sped over to the Alliance outpost, located in the direction of Panya. She only hoped that Ravim wouldn't turn on one of them next. It was not long after their departure that Zawapika looked back and saw the entire capital city being overrun with Ascendancy ships. The Alliance counterattack would come swiftly. Sadr Tlarin stared at her Outlander friends in astonishment. "I do not understand, Filony. Do you know how crazy that sounds?" The news the mercenary brought her was troubling indeed, but the Sadr could hardly believe it. "I know, Tlarins, but it's true," Filony replied. "I was doing a little exploring on my own, and I saw it for myself. So did Usian on a planet called Omulus. It was heavily mined for a particularly problematic natural resource. It's still there, a shell of its older self, but Omulus is much larger than Costia. Based on what I can tell, this world can't handle the strain being put on it. And based on the frequency of these groundquakes, we'll need to hurry if we're going to have any chance of getting the word out to all the citizens and evacuating them." Filony, Usion, Rini, and her cousin Shuri rushed to the city to see Tlarins again, to explain to her the situation and get help in warning everyone of the Costians' doom. The two young women were nearly in shock from the revelation. Tlarins wanted to help, she just wasn't sure how much she could. "My superiors have warned me against having any contact with the Outlander fugitives," she explained, not for the first time. "That's why you haven't been able to come to the temple. The only reason we can meet is because I teach Rini and Shuri, and they don't know you've come by as well." "I know all of that," Filony said, still in haste, but trying to be respectful. "But this is too important to worry about any repercussions for something like talking to the wrong people. You need to convince them to take action, or else none of you will survive." Tlarins couldn't argue with him. She had no reason not to trust what he said. "And in that time, the old world will be destroyed," she said to herself. Solder Clarence had noticed, as all Kostians had, the growing intensity and frequencies of tremors that only used to be slight and sparse when she herself was young. So the five sped off toward the capital city of Omnis, where the Solder went alone back to the temple, her home, and sought out the council of Abu Abila and the head of the female order, Mater Agency. Solder Clarence quickly got an audience with the two superiors. She started respectfully. My Abo, my mother, I have to tell you something of dire importance. Go on, my child, Abu Abila replied to her in a fatherly way. First, please forgive me, Solder Clarence began, and please hear me out after I have confessed that I have seen some of the Outlanders and have spent some time with them, two of them who remain on Kostia. The Abo was visibly upset, and Mater Agency was about to reprimand her charge before Abu Abila spoke once more. Continue. I apologize again, and I will accept any punishment later, but I must tell you what one of the Outlanders has discovered. The groundquakes we've been feeling increase recently is due to the Ascendancy mining some kind of material from our planet, somewhere. He says the tremors are like the death throes of our world, and that it won't be long before the mining destroys Kostia completely. Mater Agency looked at the Abo worriedly. Then Abila said, How do you know you can trust these people? What could you know of them that gives you such confidence in their opinions? And even if they are genuine, why should we believe they know what they're talking about? We've had tremors like this on Kostia for as long as I can remember, and they may have increased, but that doesn't mean the entire world will be destroyed. Abo, I don't know for sure, Clarence answered, but the Outlanders do seem genuine to me, because 3 of them have chosen to risk their lives to bring back our citizens and Photoglaus. Now Abo Abila's face became very grave. I see. Then it has come to this. Omnis help us all. Now Abila had an idea why he hadn't heard anything from Trop or the other Ascendancy officers. If what you say is true, then that which the Outlanders have taken it upon themselves to do will perhaps prove to be our demise faster than any groundquakes. If they are successful, the Ascendancy will be coming, and the One only knows what they will do to us once they arrive. An Ascendancy cruiser hung above the civilian compound in Bykron on Ravina, arriving in time for the battle that had just broken out between the Ravinian rebels and the fake Ravinian soldiers, who were really Ascendancy military themselves. In the front of the compound, the fake Ravinian soldiers rushed citizens into the facility and acted as though they were retreating inside, while around the back, where the rebels were attacking, the fake soldiers were fully entrenched and bearing down on the rebels, namely Kalma, Barnes, Hawk, and Valath, trapped near the back entryway. Hawk and Valath didn't know when, but at some point Barnes had acquired a handheld plasma cannon, which helped deter some of the Ascendancy ground forces and allow them some defense aside from their armored grav car. With the extra support from the massive cruiser, they felt they had little hope left. Barnes, Kalma shouted over the battle. We need to find a way in right now. Barnes, the rebel leader's right-hand man, had several times tried to make a dent in the reinforced door with the plasma cannon, to no avail. He tried again with the same result. It's no use. What else can we do? He asked. The plasma fire from their enemies was beginning to overwhelm them, and beginning to take a toll on the grav car. Just then, in the sky above the Ascendancy cruiser appeared another cruiser of a different type, followed by 3 more, then a dozen frigates and a swarm of fighters. Kalma's attitude quickly changed. The Ascendancy cruiser began retreating as soon as the ships appeared on its tracking system, but they advanced to the ground so quickly the enemy cruiser only made it over a few canyons before being shot down by the new coming ships. Haha, yes, look Barnes, the boys made it back just in time for the big fight, Kalma said. The Ravinian natives knew the fleet of their homeland well, as did the mercenaries who'd spent some time on Ravina themselves. Now the battle really begins. Captain Aezic Zin and the small Ravinian fleet came bursting at incredible speeds through the atmosphere of their home planet. The Ascendancy cruiser below them became aware of their presence too late, and before it had fled very far, the left side of the convoy shot it down. Now, being vastly outnumbered, the fake Ravinians actually did flee into the compound with whatever citizens were inside already, then locked and barricaded the doors. Like the compound in Animoth, it had an energy shield generator, which the soldiers activated immediately. "Sir, there are more combatants still outside the compound," Baroque, Azor's lieutenant, told him. "Should we engage?" Azor looked at the group of warriors on the ground for a moment. "No, let's wait," he finally ordered. "That fight didn't look staged. I think they were really attacking the bunker. And if that's the case, they must know what's going on too. They could be our own people for all we know. Let's get a closer look. Order the fleet to go on guard for a counterattack above the facility. We'll go down and have a chat with them and find out what they're really doing." The energy shield was not all the compound had, however, as defense turrets came online soon after their barrier. Azor's cruiser was forced to pull up from its landing attempt and regroup with the rest of the fleet, which was taking evasive action throughout the visible early dawn sky. They could tell from that, however, that some of the fighters outside the compound were still engaged with the enemy near the walls, within the energy shield's perimeter. "We don't have much time to deal with this," Captain Azor started to his crew, "but we can't attack a place full of our own people, and we need to protect the rest of those citizens that didn't get inside. They will undoubtedly be sending reinforcements now that we're here, and it won't take long." Azor thought for a moment. "We need to establish contact with our potential allies on the ground. Get a couple of fighters down there and see if we can figure out a way through this together." Fighter Squad 4 answered the call, and the three-man unit dove toward the rocky planet's surface through blaster fire that managed to take one of them down, sending the small ship over toward the main rebel forces in a heap of burning Ethereum. The other two made it to the ground safely just behind them, then rushed over to see if their comrade was okay. The Ravinian rebels had already gone to his aid, but the soldier had perished in the attack or the crash, and there was nothing they could do. When his allies arrived, his commander lamented the loss, but did what they'd come to do, and met with whomever he could find in charge, which happened to be Proust. "I'm sorry about your friend," Proust said to the soldier, "but we're glad you're here. You've arrived just in time." "You have no idea," said the commander of the fighter squad, a sergeant by his emblem. "Things are about to get much worse. We're here to make contact with you and find a way into the bunker together. You look like a bunch of Ravinians to me. Who are you?" "We're just as you say, sir," Proust replied. "We're the last defense of our homeworld. Anyone and everyone willing to fight and stay alive and free of the Ascendancy's tyranny." "Then we are more than just allies, my brother," said the sergeant. "But you're a little mistaken about one thing. What we call the Ascendancy is the least of our enemies." At the back door of the Bikeron compound, Mecca and Argyle were finally able to rejoin the others on their grav bikes, as the redirected fire allowed Coma, Barnes, Valanth, and Hawk to start freeing themselves. Eyeing up the grav bikes, then the ramparts above them with a rotating door of Ascendancy soldiers, Coma said, "Let me see that bike for a minute." Then he turned to his best friend and took the plasma cannon from him. "Barnes, follow behind, and you guys," he gave the plasma cannon to Valanth. "Cover us." Before anyone could object, the two Ravinian rebels were straddled atop the grav bikes and rapidly ascending upward toward the small opening through which the Ascendancy soldiers attacked. "This guy's definitely nuts," Valanth stated, already charging a plasma cannon blast, which connected with the ramparts and the soldiers thereon just before Coma and Barnes arrived. Jumping dangerously from the grab bikes to the ledge, they both made it into the narrow opening and began the frontal assault. Moments later, the reinforced door was unlatched and swung open, revealing Coma and Barnes on the other side, among a plethora of incapacitated Ascendancy soldiers. "Piece of cake," Coma smiled. "Welcome to paradise." "Jay," Aezic said, staring at his friend and subordinate in the Alliance military. "I can't believe it's you. For some reason, I thought something happened to you, and I haven't heard from any of the crew or Captain Hadrid ever since I went on leave." "Aezic," Jay began, his voice soft with joy over reuniting with his commander, but somber because of all the news he bore. "There was no leave, and you won't be hearing from anyone. We were all betrayed. You don't remember anything?" "No, actually," Aezic answered. "I haven't been able to recall whatever happened before I was sent home. Uh, Not on leave, apparently." "Then Azor and my suspicions were correct," Jay said. "Ever since we heard news of you on Sotama, we had to assume you didn't remember what had happened." "Azor?" Aezic repeated with hope. "You see my brother? He's all right?" "Yes, and Aista too," Jay replied. "I'm sorry to say we have yet to find the whereabouts of Ama, but we know she's been deported to an Ascendancy world. But Aezic, there are much bigger issues at hand. The reason you can't remember is because someone wiped your memory of the events at that time. We don't know why, but they let you live and sent you back to Ravina on your own." "What are you saying?" Aezic began to grow very concerned. Many of the thoughts he had considered in his mind played out similar to this, and he just didn't want to believe it. Now one of his best friends was giving him all the details for which he'd been searching all this time. "What happened to me?" Jay looked at the others that came with Aezic, Vala and Zario. "First, do you know you can trust these two? Who are they? From the accounts of you, I'd guess mercenaries." "Zario here is, yes," Aezic answered. "But Vala is a sergeant in the Alliance. She's been helping me since the beginning, though." "I think we should talk a little more privately, my commander," Jay said now with more than a hint of distrust. "Don't worry, they've both proven themselves trustworthy," Aezic answered his subordinate's unasked question. "It's fine, Aezic," Vala replied now. "I understand. Maybe in the future you can fill us in. Come on, Zario." "Fine, fine." Zario turned and walked out of the room with Vala. "But we expect some of the highlights at least afterward. See you later, Sarge," he said to Jay as they left. Jay started again once they were alone. "Have you heard the news about the attack on the Scion?" Aezic nodded. "It was our crew, my commander, that was aboard that vessel when it was attacked by the Ascendancy." Aezic was shocked. Again, he tried recalling the events from that time, but all he managed to do was send himself into another spat of painful headaches. "Ah, why can't I remember?" he said in frustration. It made little sense to him why his crew would be aboard the Scion, as it belonged to General Faresh. Aezic and his crew were under the command of General Vorian. "Those headaches, you've had them ever since then, haven't you?" Jay asked, knowing the answer. "Is a side effect of the memory wipe, but they should have passed by now." Regaining his composure, Aezic said, "All right, then tell me everything, Jay. What happened to our crew and Captain Hadrid?" "The crew is all gone, Lieutenant," Jay answered with remorse. "Either killed in the attack or afterward." "And the captain?" Aezic insisted. "I can tell you've already considered it," Jay said, seeing the realization already building on his commander's face. Hadrid was the one behind the entire thing. Aezic could hardly believe what his old friend and subordinate, Jay, was telling him, but at the same time, something inside him already knew the truth, despite his apparent memory wipe. He couldn't imagine all the implications. That's right, Jay continued, revealing what he knew. The Ascendancy destroyed the Scion, and then came back for the remaining crew, Yarg, Wabu, and you. Kaiken died in the initial attack. They didn't know I was still on board and wounded, and luckily for me, your brother was onto what was happening, and rescued me before I ran out of time. He took me to the remaining Ravinian fleet, most of whom had gone out with Azor to try and stop the plan to assassinate the Prime Minister of Sor before the attack on Ravina even happened, which came which came a couple rotations before the Scion was hit. They met up with the remaining Ravinian fleet after it was forced off world due to the attack, and since then we've been hiding the Prime Minister and trying to figure out this mess we are in. We've been keeping tabs on everything we can around the system, and when we heard news of you, I came to find you, and Azor took most of the fleet toward Ravina, where they're staging another attack. So Captain Hadrid, Aezic could hardly believe it, and didn't want to believe it. He's a traitor? He's really helping the Ascendancy? It's not just that, answered Jay. It's not just Hadrid. The entire Free World Alliance is with the Ascendancy. What are you saying? Aezic pressed him with concern. The Ascendancy and the Alliance are allies now? It's worse, Commander, Jay said again. For all intents and purposes, it seems the Ascendancy and the Alliance are one and the same. Wow. So there it is, episode 20, finally. I guess one of the biggest reveals there so far of the entire series. There's the answer to the question of what happened in the very beginning. What was up with the attack on the Scion? Now, at least mostly. That was it. Spoilers. Spoiler alert. It was Aezic and his crew the entire time. That were the ones aboard and targeted on the Scion. And of course, he had no idea because that was just not normal for him, right? What up, for the boy? Nice to see you. Let's see. Better not listen too much if you ever plan to listen to / watch Beyond Lumina, because you're about to hear some more spoilage. But yeah, that is it. We just had a big one. A big, what do you call those? Other than a big reveal. I guess that's what you would call it. Let's see here. Use this button here. All right, there we go. Okay, so move my face. So of course Aezic is there with his old subordinate, not old, but I mean current technically, but now reunited finally with him. That's why, of course, episode 19, if for those who've been following, of course, the series to that point, may have been on, especially if you're following on the live, because I said so afterward, may have been on to something big about to happen after episode 19, being that Aezic was about to meet up with Jay, as we learned at the very end of that episode. Vala, of course, there with him. We didn't hear a whole lot from her or Zario. They were in the room at first with them, and then asked politely to leave. And now we sort of know why, at least why Jay was very very cautious, especially once he realized that Vala was a sergeant of the Free World Alliance. Jay, down here somewhere, Have some. I think we have a couple extra uh, images here, AI generated images. There he is. Because I don't think that I um, describe him at all, at least yet. So that's what he would look like. He looks like a Ravinian. Looks like most Ravinians. He's more clean cut than Aezic for sure. A little more clean cut maybe than Azor, I think, is down here. Azic's younger brother, who's still, looks like a professional military man, compared to Aezic at least, who's more of the renegade type, I suppose, or at least looks like he is. Because yeah, there's just a bit longer there, spikier. So that's of course where they are. That was Sergeant J there with them as well. We have Valanth. We heard from him and Hawk. We actually heard from everybody today. Valanth, Hawk, Mecca, and Argyle. All those four mercenaries there with in Bikaron on Ravina in the fight, in the middle of the front lines, middle of the fray, and they didn't even know it. There with the rebels who we met recently. Coma, the leader. Again, Ravinian. They're all Ravinian rebels. Uh, you can't see his purple eyes. They're covered by the AI generated purple goggles, which is fine, I suppose. Blonde, crazy hair. And then we got Barnes, his right hand man, and Proust, one of the other leaders that we met. And of course, they're all together, all of them on Bikron. Proust leads the main forces because Coma, technically the leader of the Ravinian rebels, we've learned at this point, kind of just does whatever he feels like doing when the time comes, and so they need somebody like the older Proust here to actually lead the main forces whenever Coma decides to do things like they are currently storming the castle, basically with those four mercenaries, which of course are not from. Again, you're getting a lot of the details, maybe things you may have forgotten that are not from Ravina. There, Zario, Balan, Hawk, Philony, Usion, Mecca, and Argyle, all from the Alliance world of Dalsine that we only heard of by name because of them. But they're just mercenaries. Zario himself told Aezic early on that they don't belong anywhere. They belong to their ship. Their ship is their home, the Fangcrest, which they just recently found. They thought was gone when they checked Animov facility, which was destroyed. They checked the hangar was okay, but the ship was gone. But then they found it in the hands of those rebels that they just made friends with. Philly and Usion, of course, we now are on Kostia. We have been on Kostia and now know what they are up to. Philly was just checking things out. He was curious about the ground quakes that they have been feeling ever since they arrived there. He discovered the source of it being mining activity by the Ascendancy on the Ascendancy planet of Kostia, which is basically a subjugated planet from ancient times. That religious cavernous planet. They live inside the Earth, inside the world, because it's so close to Lumina, the star, that they can't live on the outside. And so what that let happen, and this isn't necessarily really in the story, but you can use your imagination. What happened because of that, and because they don't get out of the world very much, they do some salvaging, some scavenging of other ships. That's actually what Foder Glaus and his little crew was doing when they met Aezic and the others and brought them and their battered, destroyed ship to Kostia in the first place. That's what he and the others, many of them do, just salvage what they can because they just don't have access to much because they're subjugated basically by the Ascendancy. But because they can't really get outside on the outer part of the world, the Ascendancy has a lot of free reign, as it were, on that surface, especially if they know the routes and which they do, that the Ravinians take when they leave for salvaging and whatnot. So that's where all the mercenaries are. But we heard a lot from Ravim now recently. We know We know he did some stuff. He did some bad things. We assume. I mean, we actually don't know, right? You can't assume too much. We know that he um, assassinated, killed in cold blood his superiors, and it was witnessed by Maloon, his other subordinate. Vala and Maloon are Ravim's subordinates. Maloon and Vala, and Maloon's one of Maloon's subordinates, not her, not her next in command, which is right down here, Corporal Dodds, who is with her currently, um, but one of her lower ranking soldiers, known as Private Zawapika. I guess she's way down here. Yeah, we met her recently, but she's down here. She witnessed. Ravim doesn't know, or we don't know uh, if Ravim knows or not, but we assume Ravim does not know that Zawapika witnessed the assassinations, and of course was afraid and asked Maloon what to do. Her commander, her other commander, who is somebody that we know she trusts very greatly. Her and of course her twin sisters, Kizawap, who is one of Vala's subordinates. Maloon tells her not to tell anybody about it, and so she does not, because she trusts Maloon. Sorry, I don't know if I said Vala there. Maloon told her not to say anything, and she trusts Maloon, and so she doesn't. Maloon and Dodds there on their way back. There's Dodds, the corporal, on their way back to Ravina, where Ravim and the others are stationed. All of his crew currently, except for Vala and Maloon and Dodds, who are on their way back from secretly meeting with Vala on that free space world of Inacon. And so Maloon is like, she knows a decent bit now, and you can imagine wondering what's up. Then we have Kvos and Beta are back on with the Ravinian flagship, with the fleet, with the Prime Minister of Sor, who's been, as we were told by Jay at the end of today's episode, has been kept safe there by the Ravinians ever since before all of this started happening. So there's the Prime Minister, and Gaster there was with them, brought to them the one guy that the Prime Minister trusts, and then he was sent back to write some things in the Tansorian Federation, and then bring reinforcements to Ravina, where they already know basically the biggest fight of the war, at least to this point, is going to be had, mainly because they're going to cause it, because they know they can't lose Ravina. I guess that wasn't maybe talked about too much. Maybe that's in the next episode. We'll hear a little bit more about their thoughts in regards to that. But those are the Saurians, of course, of the Tansorian Federation, the planet of Sor. And if these weren't AI generated images, you would be able to tell them more easily by their more golden skin. The armor is pretty good, but their skin would actually be almost golden tinted, and so that would be something that makes them stand out from other races, if you will, those people of Sor. But they have the soft light blue, or the soft blue eyes. They don't necessarily have to be light blue, I guess. And brownish hair. Photoglass, already talked about him. He's back with everybody else, still on Inagon. Blem, Talarans, as always, Abila, they're all still back on Kostia, and we heard from, again, Talarans and Abila, who now know about what's happening with Kostia, their world, their home. Filini says is about to be destroyed. He passed that on, of course, to Talarans, the only person he can talk to, really. And he can talk to Rini and Shuri, of course, too. Rini's cousin, Shuri. There's Rini. Can talk to them about it, but to get to a higher authority, which of course was Abila there, needed to get to the solder, and so they did that. Got to Abila to tell him, and he of course was more concerned about the fact that the Outlanders went to save the other Kostians then he was that their world might be destroyed because he didn't know if he could actually trust that that was going to happen. He did know, however, that he could trust if the Outlanders were to go and try to save the Kostians, the ascendancy was going to respond, and it was not going to be pretty for them. Again, the subjugated, tiny world of Kostia. And so there's Drop. We don't need to talk about him anymore. He's gone. He was, of course, executed by one of his superiors for being incompetent. We didn't know about Crag and Nail. We do know, though, now that Crag, the two subordinates of Drop, we do know now that Crag is still alive and was recommissioned by that by High Master Rend, the guy in charge of things on Inagon, that pre-space planet where Aezic and the others are. Is the one in charge of the things at the facility there. He's the one that executed Drop and then again recommissioned Crag to just do more soldier stuff. So he was then in the fight for the facility for a bit until he was overpowered by Ankh, who we'll meet in a second here, I believe. We also Corporal Tice, I believe I just added his picture in. He deserves it because he's been mentioned several times now. That is Vala's subordinate, Dodds being Maloon's, Tice is Vala's. And so he was again mentioned, in this one. He's, of course, taking orders directly from Ravim in lieu of Vala, Maloon, and Dodds all being there. They are not there, so he is the next in command of the very small squad. Rini, of course, the Kostian civilian we met early on that was attracted to Aezic and whom Aezic was attracted to, and to whom Aezic was attracted. Sorry, bad grammar there. And then we got our Vala, Madam Fireblade, our Aezic Sharp Top, and our Zario Scumfoot aliases, pirate aliases, when they went to initially save those Kostians. Artis, another Kostian civilian, he and Grim, the traitorous ascendancy soldier, both again still in Kostia, or in Inagon, that is the pre-space planet, still with Photoglass there. They're not with Aezic and the others down with Jay, meeting with him, but they are still there on planet. They, in fact, Grim, Artis, and Glaus were the ones who saved the elder daughter of the chief. If it weren't for them, he would have lost both his daughters in that battle. I was going to say that day, but I guess it was technically the same rotation as it was today, this story today. It just happened. Very fresh wounds, all emotionally and physically. Jay, of course, we know what's up with him. We know what's up with General Gaster going back for the fleet and to settle things in the Dansorian Federation, because, again, the Prime Minister is still hiding out. His life is demanded right now by the Ascendancy. That's why he's hiding. Rend, again, the guy leading things on Inagon, secretly at first. Now it's all been revealed, of course, by people crash landing there. That is why Drop got executed, because no one was supposed to know, and he basically just blames Drop for it. So, or at least half blames him, half takes his anger out on. He's an evil ascendancy guy. Look at him. So, anyway, then we have Captain Otteron, who we met early on. The fake Ravinian soldier, leading the fake Ravinian soldiers, still doing so, and also was leading the mercenaries, Zario and the rest, before they turned, basically. Or did they? Bam, 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 bam. Who knows? But then, so Master Omen, we discover he really ascendancy. We kind of knew that early on. His name in the ascendancy, if you will, is Master Omen, so he's just under a High Master rank. So he's somewhere, on Ravina. We can assume he went down to Baicaron to do the same thing he was doing in Animov, right? He was leading the things there. So he's probably, they are assuming that he's down in Baicaron now at that new facility. There's the chief of Inagon, the island of Shefla. I'm sorry, it's the island of, I always forget the names of these. I get them confused. Shefla is actually, I haven't used that name for a while. That's actually Aezic's hometown. Um, I'm thinking of something, some Selvis. That's what it is. Selvis, the island, and Kalava is the continent. But the chief of Selvis is Oshu there. Ankh, his right hand man, for lack of a better term, and then Oshu's daughters, Kita and Katash, the one who died in the battle, was killed by the Ascendancy. Ankh and Kita set for a life bond, which would also make Ankh the future chief, if you will. Azor, Azic's brother, we know he just arrived with basically half of the remaining Ravinian fleet. Came from the flagship in the secret place in the Null Zone where they were hiding with the Prime Minister. He now arrived with half of the fleet at Ravina for the battle, and ends up kind of turning the tide down there in Baicaron, where they're actually planning on just serendipitously planning on just sneaking down that direction, and happened upon a lone Ascendancy cruiser wreaking havoc in a ground battle just below, and so they took care of that. And then, of course, we got Coma, got Barnes. We already know what is up with them. They just broke into that facility, that said Bicron facility, and then let the others in. Hawk, Valanth, Mecca, and Argyle. We got Proust on the outside with the remaining army. Got these guys don't matter as much. Gore was captured by the rebels, so he's actually alive still with the rebels on Ravina. This is Master Omen, Captain Auderon's lieutenant, you could say, is next in command. Master Dark and Call were Master Call were the two that were in the Inagon facility who were killed in battle. The Doctor was, of course, the Doctor on Inagon that fled, of course, because he's not a combatant. Had Scar and Harm that were back on the island of Inagon, not the continent where the facility was, but they were the ones leading the not really retaliation, because it kind of happened simultaneously back on the island. And then we met Shuri, maybe the last episode or the episode before that, Rini's cousin, back on Kostia, hence the cavern behind her and the mushrooms growing. So she's doing the same thing Rini is. They were both together at the Mushroom Grove. They're pretty much, they both live there, you could say. It's kind of the one and the same thing. So again, lastly, Kisawap Zawapika back with Ravim. Zawapika, again, the only one that knows what happened, other than Maloon, because she told Maloon what happened. Kisawap, Maloon told her not to tell her sister, Kiza and Zawa. But then down here, a couple of new ones. We did hear the name General Vorian a few times. There he is. Of course, General, highest rank, if you will, of the Free World Alliance. There's, maybe one, the commander in chief that would be above him, and the other few generals. But other than him, one of the highest ranking soldiers, officers in the Alliance, here to deal with things on Ravina with his subordinate, who we've heard of before, Captain Hadrid. And who is below? Oh yeah, okay, we can go one more, I think, at least. Should have checked that to make sure who the last one was for today. But there's Hadrid. He was, of course, named way early on. We've met him, though, now that he's with General Vorian on Ravina, commanding things. And then we also heard of Lieutenant Baroque. Ancor is his last name, and I don't think we heard that yet, but there he is. That's the lieutenant of Azor, Aezic's brother, and also Aezic and Azor's brother-in-law, because he has made a life bond, which would be the same thing as being married to their sister Aista, who we have not met yet, but we will. And Haven't met that person yet, so we will wait. 53-ish, actually 50, not counting the 3 pirate aliases. That's it. All right, that's all I got. That's where everybody is. That's what is happening. We got 10 episodes left. And if you haven't been able to tell yet, those of you who are watching in the future and actually following this, and you Beyond Lumina fans out there, thanks for chilling. Thanks for being fans. We got a lot of awesome stuff coming, by the way, game wise and story wise, both. And maybe some other things too. Who knows? Uh, Speaking of, actually, there's going to be some more stream content perhaps once a week for Beyond Lumina, which I think will be very, very fun. It's game related, but it doesn't like require me to do a whole lot other than like some setup stuff. So I'm like kind of excited about that. It's something that I quite like myself. It's something I'm for whenever I'm just trying to hang out and not do much and not use my brain too much or have something on. I guess it doesn't work as much when I'm streaming it, but something I enjoy. So maybe you guys will too. Who knows? Maybe we'll get some new fans. And it's just another way to advertise and market Beyond Lumina and Nerds Templar, of course, and everything else we're going to do here, which includes many other stories, not just Beyond Lumina. But we will be continuing, if you haven't noticed what I was going to mention by now. There are several things happening that in 10 episodes do not seem like they're going to be able to be reconciled, right? Maybe you haven't noticed. But one, I'll just point out right now that we heard that, of course, we know Aezic, we know Azor is okay because we've had perspectives from his perspective several times before Aezic even knew that he was okay, but now he does know that. We also know that Asta, their sister, is all right. Their older of their 2 sisters, is okay. We also know now, though, that Ama, the younger of their 2 sisters, the youngest of the 4 of them, Aezic, Azor, Asta, and then Ama last, is still missing. They do know that, as with the other Ravinian citizens, she was taken to an Ascendancy world. So they just don't know where she is yet. And so 10 episodes, probably not enough time with everything else happening, you would think, to find them and rescue the Ravinian citizens. So you can maybe expect that to be a big part of the story in future book 2 and 3. There may be more main story books than just the trilogy, you could say, the first trilogy. But there is sort of a trilogy we're working through here. Another slight spoiler, but not really. Yeah, so that's that. There's several. Obviously, you could probably, if you go back through and listen, read the story, maybe several other things you could pick out at this point that you could probably say, I don't know if we're gonna hear what happens about that by the end of book 1 here. There are a couple other ones, a couple obvious ones I would say. But I guess that's it, guys. That's all I got for you for now. Already got several more episodes written. Do need to do all the editing. This is finally, we had 1 episode here. Finally, I didn't have a perfect editing. I think all the other ones were perfect enough. I did miss one of my throat clears on this one. Right at the end, right in the middle of Jay's long monologue of what had happened on the Scion. But it's okay. It's all right. It all got through, so it was probably the smallest of issues we could have had missed. So that's probably why we missed it, because it was such a small, just a little throat clear that I just missed it. Yeah, we'll be back. I'm actually probably going to be doing things a little bit differently here as far as TCG Collection Series goes in the near future, at least. We'll see how it goes in the later future. But probably going to change to just doing one decently sized, large stream on Friday. I want to do it Friday evenings, and I would have done it last evening. Sorry, I missed it again. I'm going to try to come tonight to do it, the one I missed for yesterday, because it is our ETB of the month today, or it was supposed to be yesterday. But, of course, Surging Sparks Pokemon Center exclusive ETB has not come in yet. Probably got stuck in Grove City, Ohio. So it's taken over a week, which is just way too long for things to ship. So Still waiting on that. If I have to, I guess maybe we'll just have to wait until next Friday to do the ETB of the month, which means that I will come back tonight to do something. If it's not that, it's going to be something else. I may have to just go to like the comic shop and see if he's got some build and battle boxes, even though they didn't do the pre-release this time there. He might just have them anyway. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on. But we'll see. I'm gonna have something for tonight that will open, but then I'm not gonna do. I don't even know if I'm gonna be doing much. I'll probably do a little bit of Lorcana. Maybe for every new set, we'll still do the Illumineers Trove, get those, and that'll probably maybe be it. Maybe not do the starter decks. I don't know about that anymore. Or we'll wait until they go to a really low price and we'll get them when they're like $5 each. But probably not going to worry too much right now, at least about Yu-Gi-Oh. I've been cutting back on the One Piece for now. Different things happening on the other side of things, good things. Hopefully building toward even better things, because Pokemon and trading card collecting is not the end game by any means. That's really not an end game in it by any means for anybody. Shouldn't be. It's really just kind of should be a small hobby. Same with video games. That's why sort of we're not trying to focus on any of that kind of stuff. More worried about Nerds Templar itself building what this channel is really about, which is our stories, not just our stories, my stories, but the Nerds Templar community as we grow bigger and bigger. It's about all of us here who want to create and consume good, wholesome content, unwoke stuff. So that's what it's all about. And of course, then making games that go along with that same goal. So we're going to focus on that instead. And as time goes, it'll give us more and more extremely fun content to do on our channel here as well, because then we'll have our own games that we can play together instead of having to rely on other woke games. So, but in the meantime, we will still be, of course, collecting Pokemon twice a week still, actually. So I'm gonna the smaller stream though is gonna change. I don't know if I'm gonna do a stream at all for that one. It might end up being a short video that I put out once a week. Yeah, I'll see. It might actually be like a short that I put out once a week. That's not the same as the TCG boosters I'm doing now, because I'll maybe do that. I'll see, actually. Maybe I won't do the TCG live boosters. Maybe I'll just start giving all those code cards out to you guys that I get, because I don't know how much I'm gonna do it. I haven't even played Pocket yet because I don't care. And the more I don't play it, the more I miss the launch, the more I don't care to try to play it later. So, because don't get me wrong, guys. It's not that I don't want to do this stuff. It's that there's better things to be doing, and that goes not just for me, but for most people. A lot of people are in the online community, the gaming community, are stuck doing completely superfluous things with their entire lives. It's fine to do the things, but to make your entire life revolve around those things is a huge problem, and that's why everyone's so miserable these days. Because they've completely lost the plot. Honestly, that's what it comes down to. From a storyteller's perspective, they have lost the plot of life completely, and that's why they're miserable. Anyway, that's something, again, that we try to fight here on Nerds Templar. But yeah, eventually we will have some fun games, and games that won't be all life-consuming, but just fun, and things that'll still be things that, you can play continually and can grow, some like RPG-like, if you will. In fact, RPG, exactly. We have RPGs that are, in the making, some made already to different points, and plenty of other games. So we got a lot of fun stuff in the works, not just stories. But we will be continuing, not just with Beyond Lumina, but which is rated age 13 plus. Probably watch it, listen to it. If you're a little younger, you just maybe will miss some of the finer details, which is fine, because you don't necessarily need to get every single aspect of the story the first time you listen to it. Just kind of let it tell itself the first time through if you want. But we will also have I'm shooting for, actually I was going to do rating of age 10 plus for the next one, but I think it's actually going to end up being like a 7 plus, maybe even suitable, probably about 7 plus, especially the way that like our secular culture rates things, which I'm not going off of. I'm going off of my own wholesome rankings, ratings. I would say 7+, but something that's still kind of story driven, but less so, more episodic. So you don't have to watch every week to understand what's happening, but still something where there's character building happening. That's going to be the Wildlands series. I'm super excited for that. Not only because it's a new series that we're going to be doing, probably starting in January, maybe a little bit after that, we'll see. But also because it's not just I know now. Who knows exactly when it'll start being this way, but it's not just going to be me writing the Wildlands series. It's going to be a collaborative effort, and I'm super excited about that. So that is already, again, talking about things on this channel, not just being about my creations, but mine and networking with others, other like-minded creators to get great content out there for all of you folks, all of you Temple nerds. And that is beginning, not just in the sense that I have other creators that are going to be helping in Wildlands, but in other ways as well that I will not divulge just yet. I will save that for later. But anyway, guys, thanks for chilling. I've rambled far too long, so I'll let you go. On to the next one for you VOD watchers. Thanks for chilling. If you watched for this long, God bless you. I'm Randy, and this is Nerds Templar. Peace out.